I can still hear his voice cutting through the busy airport terminal like a cold blade. That smirk on his face as he handed me the boarding pass. It shattered something deep inside me that I thought had already healed. My name is Harper. For the past few years, I had been living a quiet life after leaving a high-stakes career that took everything from me. I came home carrying scars no one could see. Invisible wounds from years of service that demanded silence and sacrifice. My family never really understood. To them, I was just the quiet one who did some government work and now preferred simple things. We were heading to a family reunion in Hawaii, a trip my older brother, Ryan, had organized with great pride. He had always been the golden child. Successful businessman, loud personality, the one who loved showing off. I was grateful he included me, even if it felt like an afterthought. I told myself family sticks together no matter what. At the airport, check-in counter, the line buzzed with excitement. Ryan stood there with our parents and his wife, waving their first-class boarding passes like trophies. When it was my turn, he turned to the agent with that familiar, confident smile and said, "Just economy for her, please." The agent printed my ticket and handed it over. Ryan took it first, glanced at it, and then looked straight at me with a smirk that made my stomach drop. "Economy class only? This is all you can handle," he said loudly enough for nearby travelers to hear. "Don't complain, Harper. You're used to the simple life now, right? Seat 34E, right by the bathroom. Should feel just like home." My cheeks burned. Our parents chuckled awkwardly. His wife covered her mouth to hide a smile. I felt exposed, small, and completely alone in that crowded terminal. But what I didn't know that day was that this public humiliation would become the moment everything changed. I swallowed the lump in my throat and took the boarding pass without a word. What could I say? Ryan had always treated me like the family project, the one who needed help because I chose a different path. While he built his empire, I had served in roles that protected people like him, though I could never speak about it. After my final mission left me with lasting injuries and forced me into early retirement, I chose peace over prestige. I lived simply, worked quietly, and tried to rebuild. But Ryan saw my quiet life as failure. Over the years, he had slowly convinced our parents that I wasn't capable of handling real success. He managed the family finances and investments, always making sure his lifestyle came first. I discovered later that a portion of the inheritance meant for all of us had quietly shifted toward his projects. For the family's future, he claimed. I never fought it. I didn't want to cause pain or division. That day at the gate, as we boarded, the contrast felt cruel. Ryan and the family disappeared into the first-class cabin with champagne and wide seats. I walked down the long aisle to economy, squeezing past passengers until I reached seat 34E, middle seat, right beside the bathroom. The smell, the noise, the cramped space, it all pressed down on me. I sat there staring at the boarding pass, my hands trembling slightly. Tears stung my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. The words kept echoing, "This is all you can handle." They weren't just about the seat. They were about my entire life in his eyes. Small, limited, unworthy. I felt shattered all over. Again. The brother I had protected in silence for years now publicly reduced me to someone who belonged in the back. The heartbreak was deep because it came from family, the people who should have lifted me up. Yet in that cramped seat, something began to stir inside me. The pain didn't break me further. It reminded me of who I truly was. The woman who had once made impossible decisions under pressure. The woman trained to stay calm when the world was falling apart. I closed my eyes and breathed. The old strength I had buried started rising quietly. I wasn't the failure he painted, Mia's. I was simply waiting for the right moment to be seen. The flight had been in the air for about an hour when the cabin crew began their rounds. I sat quietly, lost in thought, when I noticed movement in the aisle. A senior flight attendant walked purposefully from the front of the plane, followed by the captain himself, a tall, composed man with silver hair and an air of quiet authority. They stopped right beside my row. The captain looked down at me, his eyes widening with recognition. In a clear, respectful voice that carried through the cabin, he said, "General Harper Thompson, ma'am?" The entire section went still. I looked up and gave a small nod. "Yes, Captain." He straightened immediately and offered a crisp salute. "It is an honor, General. We were just informed of your presence on board. On behalf of the entire crew and this airline, thank you for your distinguished service. We have a seat prepared for you in first class if you would allow us the privilege." Gasps rippled through the plane. Passengers turned their heads. Phones that had been filming random moments now pointed toward us. The flight attendant gently helped me gather my things. As I stood, the captain spoke again, loud enough for the forward cabin to hear. "Ladies and gentlemen, this passenger is not just any traveler. General Thompson has served our country with extraordinary courage and leadership in operations most of us will never know about. She deserves far more than economy class." I walked up the aisle with quiet dignity. When I reached the first-class section, Ryan's face turned pale. His smirk had completely vanished. Our parents looked stunned. His wife stared at the floor, embarrassed. Ryan tried to speak. "Harper, I didn't know. We thought—" But the captain interrupted politely yet firmly. "Sir, perhaps next. Time you'll ask before assuming what someone can or cannot handle." I took the upgraded seat in silence. No dramatic shouting, no public scene from me. The truth, spoken with calm respect, was more powerful than any words I could have thrown at him. The rest of the flight passed with the crew treating me with genuine warmth and admiration. Whispers spread through the cabin about the general in economy. Ryan barely looked at me for the remaining hours. His loud confidence had turned into uncomfortable silence. That smirk I once feared now felt small and distant. By the time we landed, the story had already spread among the crew and passengers. My phone later filled with messages of respect from strangers who witnessed the moment. Ryan called that evening, his voice shaky with regret. He admitted he had underestimated me for years and asked for forgiveness. I listened, but told him gently that some lessons need time to sink in. Today, I no longer shrink in the face of judgment. That flight taught me my worth was never defined by a boarding pass or someone else's opinion. I still live simply by choice, but now with my head held high, knowing the quiet strength I carry. The lesson I want to leave with you is this: never judge someone by the seat they're sitting in. You never know the battles they've fought, the ranks they've earned, or the quiet power they hold. The people who smirk at your economy moment may one day realize they were looking at a general all along. I found my peace the moment that captain called my rank. And in that moment, I stopped being the sister who could only handle the back of the plane. I became the woman who had always been worthy of respect, whether in economy or anywhere else. Thank you for listening to my story. Remember, your value is never measured by how others see you in life. Stand tall in your truth. Your moment of recognition will come when you least expect it, but when you need it most. I can still hear his voice echoing in my ears, that cold, smug smirk on his face as he looked me up and down at the airport gate. "This is all you can handle?" he said loudly enough for people around us to hear. "Economy class? Come on. Don't complain. This suits you perfectly." My name is Sophia. For 3 years, I had loved this man with everything I had. I supported him through his career struggles, stood by him when he lost his job, and sacrificed my own comfort many times just to make him happy. But that day at the airport, after I had just discovered he was cheating on me, he chose to humiliate me in public. We were supposed to be going on a trip together, a trip I had paid for. But when he saw my boarding pass for economy class, something in him snapped. Or maybe he just finally showed his true colors. The way he said it, with that arrogant smirk, it shattered me. People nearby turned their heads. I felt my face burn with shame. My hands trembled as I held my boarding pass. In that moment, I felt smaller than I had ever felt in my entire life. I wanted to disappear. I wanted the ground to swallow me whole. But I said nothing. I just took my bag and walked toward the plane, fighting back tears. What I didn't know was that the flight crew had been watching the entire scene. As I boarded the plane and found my seat in economy, my heart felt completely broken. The man I had trusted, the man I thought loved me, had just torn me down in front of strangers. And the worst part? This wasn't the first time. For months, he had been making little comments about my job, my looks, my dreams. He always made me feel like I wasn't enough. But that day at the gate, he crossed a line. The betrayal ran deeper because I had just found out he had been seeing someone else behind my back for weeks. I sat there in my narrow seat, staring out the window, feeling worthless. Tears silently rolled down my cheeks. How could someone who once said, "I love you," treat me like I was nothing? The plane took off. I tried to disappear into my seat, hoping no one would notice me. But the flight attendants had noticed everything. One of them, a kind woman named Rachel, walked past my row multiple times. She gave me gentle, knowing looks. I thought she was just being polite. Until about an hour into the flight, everything changed. The captain's voice came over the speaker, calm and professional. He announced that due to a minor technical issue, we would be upgrading a few passengers to business class. My name was called Sophia Reynolds. Please come forward. I froze. Me? Business class? As I stood up, confused, I saw my boyfriend's face from a few rows ahead. He looked shocked. He had been upgraded earlier because of his frequent flyer status. He smirked again as if to say, "See? Even now, I'm better than you." But what happened next left the entire cabin stunned. Rachel, the senior flight attendant, personally escorted me to business class. But instead of taking me to a random seat, she stopped right next to my boyfriend. With a calm, professional smile, she said loud enough for everyone in the cabin to hear, "Sir, there's been a seating change. This seat belongs to Sophia. You'll need to move back to economy." The smirk on his face disappeared instantly. He tried to argue, his voice rising. "What? This is my seat. I have status." Rachel remained completely composed and replied, "Actually, sir, the upgrade was requested specifically for Sophia. And after what we witnessed at the gate, the crew has decided she deserves the comfort more than you do." The entire business class section went silent. People were staring. Someone even started clapping quietly. His face turned red with embarrassment as he was escorted back to economy. The same section he had mocked me for sitting in. The same section he had said, "This is all you can handle." As I settled into the wide, comfortable business class seat, Rachel leaned down and whispered kindly, "You deserve better than someone who speaks to you like that. We've got your back." In that moment, I didn't feel small anymore. I felt seen. I felt protected. For the first time in a long time, I felt like my worth was being acknowledged. He tried to apologize later, texting me frantically from the back of the plane. But it was too late. The damage was done, and the crew's quiet act of justice had given me something much more valuable than a better seat. It gave me my dignity back. That flight taught me a powerful lesson. Never let anyone make you feel like you're not enough. The right people will always see your worth, even when the person you love tries to destroy it. Sometimes justice doesn't come with loud arguments or dramatic fights. Sometimes it comes quietly, through the kindness of strangers who refuse to let cruelty go unchecked. And when it does, it feels incredibly sweet. From that day forward, I stopped shrinking myself for people who enjoyed making me small. I learned to walk away from anyone who smirks while breaking my heart. Because I am not all I can handle. I am so much more, and I will never again let anyone convince me otherwise.
I never imagined betrayal could hit me 30,000 feet above the ground, but that's exactly where my heart broke wide open. I stood frozen at the boarding gate, suitcase in hand, still clinging to the hope that this Paris trip would save us. 3 years together, and I had poured everything into him: late night support, quiet sacrifices, endless belief in the man I thought was my forever. He was the successful executive with the corner office and the confident stride. I was the girl who cheered him on, believing his promises of a beautiful life together. But when he glanced at my boarding pass, that familiar smirk spread across his face. "Economy class only?" He said loud enough for the whole line to hear. "Don't complain. This is all you can handle." The words landed like ice on my skin. Passengers turned, whispers started, and I felt myself shrink right there in public. My cheeks burned, my throat tightened. How could the same man who once called me his everything now make me feel so small? What I didn't know that night before the flight was how deep the betrayal already ran. I had seen the messages, flirty texts, secret plans, another woman's name glowing on his phone screen. My world had shattered in our quiet living room, but I still boarded that plane hoping for one last chance. Instead, he walked straight into business class without a backward glance, leaving me to squeeze into economy like I didn't matter. The overhead lights felt too bright, the seat too narrow, and every breath carried the weight of his smirk, echoing in my ears. I was broken, completely exposed, wondering if I had ever been enough. Tears stung my eyes as the plane pushed back from the gate. But in that moment of pure heartbreak, something I could never have predicted was already unfolding behind the scenes. The flight staff, they were watching, and they were about to change everything. Asterisk, the plane climbed into the clouds, and I sank deeper into my economy seat, the armrest digging into my side like a constant reminder of how far I had fallen in his eyes. He was up front, probably stretching, out in business class with a glass of champagne, while I sat here feeling every inch of the distance he had created. "This is all you can handle." The 6 words were played on a cruel loop in my mind. I stared out the tiny window at the endless blue, but all I could see was the way he had slowly chipped away at my confidence for months, dismissing my ideas, comparing me to others, making me question my own worth. The betrayal wasn't new. It had been building quietly. The late nights that turned into unexplained absences, the sudden coldness when I reached for his hand, and then those messages I discovered the night, the 4 words he never once said to me. My chest ached so fiercely I could barely breathe. I felt shattered, worthless, like every loving moment we shared had been a lie. Why had I stayed? Why had I convinced myself I deserved this treatment? Tears slipped down my cheeks before I could stop them. The stranger beside me shifted uncomfortably, but I couldn't hide the pain anymore. Then he appeared, walking back through the cabin under the excuse of stretching his legs. He stopped right by my row, leaned down, and whispered with that same smirk, "Enjoying the view back here? See, you fit right in." My heart twisted violently. I couldn't speak. The humiliation burned hotter than ever. In that instant, every memory rushed back. The birthdays he forgot, the dreams he called cute, the way he made me feel like an accessory rather than a partner. I was destroyed inside, completely broken by the man I had trusted with my whole soul. But something shifted in the silence that followed. The anger that had been buried under layers of hurt began to rise, quiet, steady, and powerful. I refused to let him win. I refused to let his cruelty define me. That's when the flight attendant paused at my row. She was warm, maybe in her 40s, with kind eyes that seemed to notice everything. "You okay, love?" she asked softly, offering me a fresh bottle of water. Her gentle voice cracked something open. I whispered the truth, the cheating, the messages, the cruel smirk at the gate. She didn't gasp or judge. She simply listened, her hand resting lightly on the seat back. "No one deserves to be spoken to like that," she said. "You are worth so much more." In that small moment of kindness, strength started blooming inside my broken heart. I wasn't invisible anymore. I wasn't alone. The pain was still there, raw and real. But for the first time since the betrayal began, I felt myself rising. Asterisk. What happened next felt like a scene from a movie I never dared to dream. My kind flight attendant quietly shared my story with the rest of the crew, strong, professional women who had seen too many passengers treated poorly. They didn't need long explanations. They saw the truth in my eyes and the arrogance in his earlier behavior when he had snapped at one of them over a simple request. Mid-flight, during the service, they moved with quiet purpose. First, they approached his business class seat. Polite, but firm, they explained there had been a seat reassignment due to operational needs. Before he could protest, they escorted him all the way back to economy, the very last row. Middle seat, right beside a tired family with a restless toddler, his face drained of color. The smirk vanished. Then came the moment that still gives me chills. Over the intercom, the captain's calm voice announced, "We'd like to extend a special thank you to our passenger in row 12 for her patience and understanding. We're upgrading her to business class for the remainder of the flight." The entire cabin erupted in soft applause as I walked forward, head high, to the spacious seat that had once been his. Champagne arrived moments later. I sipped it slowly, feeling the weight lift with every mile we flew. He sat there stunned, exposed in front of strangers, his power trip completely dismantled. When he tried to argue, the crew stood united. "Sir, we do not tolerate disrespectful behavior toward our passengers or staff," one said clearly. The whispers spread through the plane like wildfire. Everyone had seen his attitude at the gate. Everyone now saw justice unfolding in real time. His face burned with humiliation, the same humiliation he had forced on me by the time we landed in Paris. The storm inside me had settled into peaceful clarity. I collected my bags alone, ended the relationship with quiet finality at baggage claim, and walked away without looking back. That flight didn't just upgrade my seat, it upgraded my entire life. The moral I carry with me now is simple yet powerful. No one has the right to make you feel small or unworthy. When someone tries to shrink you with their words or actions, remember your worth is never up for negotiation. Sometimes justice doesn't come from loud confrontation, it arrives quietly, through the kindness of strangers who refuse to let cruelty win. I rose stronger, lighter, and free. And that, more than any revenge, is the greatest victory of all. I still remember the exact moment my heart cracked open, not with a scream, but with a quiet, devastating smirk. We were standing at the boarding gate, surrounded by strangers rushing to their flights, and he looked down at my boarding pass. Like it was proof of something pathetic. "Economy again," he said, voice low but loud enough for the people nearby to turn. Then came that smirk, the one I used to think was charming, confident. Betrayed by his smirk and economy, I would later call it. But in that second, it felt like the final nail in the coffin of everything we'd built. His name was Ryan. 3.5 years of my life, wrapped around a man who always seemed one step ahead. Successful job, sharp suits, promises of one day we'll fly first class together. I believed him because I loved him. I worked 2 jobs so we could save for the future he kept painting. I stayed up late listening to his stresses, held him when deals fell through, celebrated every small win like it was mine too. I thought we were a team. I felt love meant carrying the weight when the other person couldn't, but the night before our trip to Bali, the trip I begged him to take as a reset for us, I found the messages. Her name lighting up his phone screen over and over photos, plans, laughing emojis that sliced through me like glass. I sat on the bathroom floor until dawn, staring at the proof that I wasn't enough, that I had never been enough. Yet the next morning, I still packed my bag. I still went to the airport. I told myself maybe it was a mistake, maybe we could fix it on this vacation. Then came the gate. The boarding pass check. That smirk. Economy only? Come on, babe. This is all you can handle. He said it casually like a joke, but his eyes were cold. Passengers glanced over. A woman behind me actually gasped softly. My face burned. My stomach dropped. I wanted to disappear. Instead, I walked down the jet bridge alone while he strode ahead to business class without once looking back. I settled into my cramped middle seat, knees pressed against the seat in front, tears silently falling behind my sunglasses. The plane taxied, engines roared, and I thought, this is it. This is how it ends. But what I didn't know, what no one could have predicted, was that the cabin crew had been watching the entire scene at the gate, and they weren't about to let it slide. Hook beginning. I still remember the exact moment my heart cracked open, not with a scream, but with a quiet, devastating smirk. We were standing at the boarding gate, surrounded by strangers rushing to their flights, and he looked down at my boarding pass like it was proof of something pathetic. Economy again? He said, voice low but loud enough for the people nearby to turn. Then came that smirk, the one I used to think was charming, confident. Betrayed by his smirk in economy, I would later call it. But in that second, it felt like the final nail in the coffin of everything we'd built. His name was Ryan. 3.5 years of my life wrapped around a man who always seemed one step ahead. Successful job, sharp suits, promises of one day we'll fly first class together. I believed him because I loved him. I worked 2 jobs so we could save for the future he kept painting. I stayed up late listening to his stresses, held him when deals fell through, celebrated every small win like it was mine too. I thought we were a team. I felt love meant carrying the weight when the other person couldn't, but the night before our trip to Bali, the trip I begged him to take as a reset for us, I found the messages. Her name lighting up his phone screen over and over photos, plans, laughing emojis that sliced through me like glass. I sat on the bathroom floor until dawn, staring at the proof that I wasn't enough, that I had never been enough. Yet the next morning, I still packed my bag. I still went to the airport. I told myself maybe it was a mistake, maybe we could fix it on this vacation. Then came the gate. The boarding pass check. That smirk. Economy only? Come on, babe. This is all you can handle. He said it casually like a joke, but his eyes were cold. Passengers glanced over. A woman behind me actually gasped softly. My face burned. My stomach dropped. I wanted to disappear. Instead, I walked down the jet bridge alone while he strode ahead to business class without once looking back. I settled into my cramped middle seat, knees pressed against the seat in front, tears silently falling behind my sunglasses. The plane taxied, engines roared, and I thought, this is it. This is how it ends. But what I didn't know, what no one could have predicted, was that the cabin crew had been watching the entire scene at the gate, and they weren't about to let it slide. Mid conflict and betrayal. Up in the air, the cabin lights dimmed and the betrayal settled heavier than the altitude. Every time the flight attendant passed with drinks or blankets for business class, I felt another stab Ryan was up there, probably sipping something expensive, legs stretched out. While I tried to make myself smaller in row 32, his words kept replaying, "This is all you can handle." They weren't just about the sea anymore. They were about me. About every time I'd shrunk myself to fit his vision. Every dream I'd set aside. Every tear I'd swallowed so he wouldn't call me dramatic. I replayed our last few months in my head like a cruel highlight reel. The canceled date nights because work was too important. The way he'd scroll through his phone when I tried to talk about my day. The sudden girls' trip he took that I later learned wasn't with his sister. The perfume on his collar that wasn't mine. Each memory landed like a fresh wound. I felt exposed, foolish, utterly broken. How had I not seen it sooner? How had I convinced myself his coldness was just stress? Halfway through the flight, he actually walked back to economy. Not to check on me, not to apologize. To use the restroom and to rub it in. He stopped at my row, leaned down, and whispered, "Still okay back here? Not too uncomfortable?" That smirk again. I couldn't speak. My throat closed. I just stared at my lap, tears splashing onto my jeans. He chuckled softly and walked away like he'd won something. That was the moment the pain started turning. Not into rage, into something colder, clearer, resolve. I wiped my face. I straightened my back as much as the tiny seat allowed. And for the first time in months, I let myself feel angry, not at myself, but at him. At the way he'd treated my love like it was disposable. At how easily he'd humiliated me in front of strangers. That's when Sarah, one of the senior flight attendants, paused beside me. She was maybe 40, calm eyes, steady voice. "Sweetheart," she said quietly, "I saw what happened at the gate. Are you all right?" I shook my head. The words spilled out in a whisper, the cheating, the messages, the cruel comment, the years I'd given. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she squeezed my shoulder gently. "No one gets to speak to you like that. Not here. Not anywhere." She walked away, but I saw her speaking softly to the other crew members. Heads nodding, glances toward business class. Something was shifting. The humiliation that had crushed me was slowly being replaced by a fragile, flickering hope. I wasn't invisible anymore. And maybe, just maybe, I wasn't powerless either. Asterisk about. An hour later, the announcement came. The captain's voice, calm and professional, filled the cabin. "We'd like to recognize a very patient and gracious passenger today. Due to a seating adjustment, we're pleased to upgrade Miss Atik from economy to business class for the remainder of the flight. Please make your way forward when it's safe." The cabin actually applauded, soft, warm, scattered claps that grew louder. My legs shook as I stood, heads turned, smiles from strangers. I walked up the aisle past rows of curious eyes, straight into the spacious seat that had once been his. Champagne arrived within minutes, a soft blanket. Extra legroom, quiet, dignity, Ryan's. Face when he saw me, priceless. He sat frozen in his new economy seat, the very last row, middle, squeezed between a crying baby and a man who snored. His smirk was gone, replaced by red cheeks, clenched jaw, stunned silence. When he tried to protest to the crew, Sarah stepped forward. "Sir, we've received multiple reports of disruptive and disrespectful behavior. We've reassigned you for the comfort and safety of all passengers." Her tone left no room for argument. He spent the rest of the flight staring at the seat back in front of him, humiliated in full view of everyone who'd witnessed his cruelty at the gate. Whispers traveled the length of the plane. Justice didn't need shouting. It arrived quietly, politely, and irreversibly. When we landed in Bali, I walked off first. I didn't wait for him. I didn't look back. At baggage claim, I sent one final message. "We're done." Then I turned off my phone and stepped into the warm island air, lighter than I'd felt in years. That flight taught me something I'll carry forever. Your worth is never determined by how someone else treats you in a moment of arrogance. When people try to shrink you, belittle you, make you feel small, there are always eyes watching, kind hearts ready to step in, quiet strength waiting to rise. I didn't need to yell or fight to reclaim my power. I just needed to keep breathing, keep standing, keep being me. And sometimes the universe or a compassionate crew delivers the reminder that you deserve better. You deserve the upgrade, not just the seat, but the life. And when the right moment comes, you'll rise, and the ones who tried to hold you down will finally see exactly how high you were always meant to soar. I can still hear her laugh echoing through the cabin, that sharp, mocking sound that used to make me shrink when we were kids. Only this time it was louder, meaner, because we were 30,000 feet in the air, trapped together on a pact. Flight from New York to London. My name is Lena. I'm 34. A former Air Force fighter pilot who left the service 5 years ago after my tour ended. I traded cockpit adrenaline for a quieter life teaching flight simulators part-time, volunteering at veteran centers, trying to feel normal again. My younger sister Claire was the opposite, always loud, always center stage, the one who got the spotlight while I quietly flew missions no one talked about at family dinners. We hadn't spoken much in the last 2 years. Not since she posted that viral video of me at Dad's funeral, me in uniform. Tears in my eyes, and captioned it, "Big sis finally cries like a normal person." People laughed in the comments. I deleted my socials after that. But when our mother begged us to fly home together for her 70th birthday, I said yes. I thought maybe time had softened things. I was wrong. Claire boarded first class, of course. I was in economy, middle seat, like always, but she made sure everyone knew we were sisters. She walked down the aisle in her designer coat, spotted me, and stopped right there. "Oh my God, Lena, you're actually flying commercial? No private jet from your glory days?" She laughed loud, theatrical. Heads turned. Phones came out. I forced a small smile. "It's fine, Claire. Good to see you." She leaned over the seat in front of me, voice dripping with fake pity. "Still living off those old war stories? Honey, nobody cares about your little fighter jet adventures anymore. You're just ordinary now." The words landed like punches. Passengers around us chuckled nervously. A teenage girl filmed it discreetly. I felt heat rise in my cheeks, the same helpless burn I felt as a kid when she'd steal my thunder. I stared at my hands, whispered, "Please just sit down." She rolled her eyes, tossed her hair, and strutted back to first class. The flight attendant gave me a sympathetic look. I put in my earbuds, tried to disappear, but what I didn't know, what none of us knew, was that 2 hours later, everything would change. The plane would shudder. Alarms would scream. And the sister who mocked me would suddenly need the one person she spent her life belittling. Asterisk. The first sign was subtle, a slight yaw, like the aircraft was hesitating. Then the captain's voice came over the speakers, calm but tight. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've experienced a hydraulic failure in the flight controls. We're declaring an emergency. Please remain seated." Panic rippled through the cabin. Gasps, prayers, a baby crying. I felt my old training kick in, instantly heart rate steady, senses sharp. I unbuckled, stood, and moved toward the front. A flight attendant blocked me. "Ma'am, please return to your seat." "I'm a former fighter pilot," I said quietly. "I can help." She hesitated, then nodded. I followed her to the cockpit door. Inside, the co-pilot was sweating, hands shaking on the yoke. The captain looked up, eyes wide with recognition. "You're Captain Lena Hayes, the one from the Gulf exercises?" I nodded. "Both." Engines were still running, but the hydraulic lines to the primary flight controls had ruptured. The plane was on autopilot, barely holding altitude. Manual control was sluggish, almost impossible. We were losing time. The nearest suitable airport was still 40 minutes away. That's when Claire appeared at the curtain, pale, clutching her phone like a lifeline. She saw me in the cockpit and froze. "Lena?" Her voice cracked. "What are you doing up here?" The captain glanced at her. "She's helping. Go back." But Claire didn't move. She stared at me, really stared, for the first time in years. No mockery. Just fear. I turned back to the instruments. "I need the jump seat." They let me in. I slid behind the captain, eyes scanning every gauge. The plane was drifting right, slowly losing altitude. I started talking them through manual trim adjustments, rudder inputs, anything to buy time. My voice was calm, the way it always was in combat. Claire stayed at the door, watching. Every time I gave an instruction, her eyes widened. She looked small. For once, she wasn't the star. Then the worst happened. A second hydraulic leak. The autopilot disconnected. The plane banked hard. Screams filled the cabin. The captain fought the yoke. "We're not going to make it." I leaned forward. "Yes, we are. Give me the controls." He hesitated, then handed them over. I took the yoke. Muscle memory flooded back. I trimmed, countered, nursed the aircraft like a wounded bird. Every correction felt like breathing. The passengers were silent now, praying. Claire whispered behind me, "I'm sorry." I didn't know. I didn't answer. Not yet. I was too focused on keeping 300 souls alive, including hers. Asterisk. We broke through the clouds 20 miles from the runway. I tucked the tower through our degraded state. No flaps, limited gear, sluggish controls. They cleared every other. Aircraft out of the way. The landing was brutal. The plane touched down hard, tires screaming. We veered slightly, but I caught it. Straightened, braked. We rolled to a stop on the taxiway. Safe silence. Then applause erupted, shaky, tearful, grateful. Passengers hugged strangers. The captain turned to me, eyes wet. "You just saved everyone on this plane." I exhaled, hands still trembling on the yoke. Only then did I look back. Claire was crying, mascara streaking. She stepped forward, voice barely audible. "Lena, I've been awful all these years. I was jealous. You were always the strong one, and I hated it. I'm so sorry." I looked at her, really looked. The sister who'd mocked me, diminished me, turned my pain into entertainment. Part of me wanted to walk away, let her feel the weight of her words forever, but I just held 300 lives in my hands, including hers. I stood, faced her. "I forgive you," I said quietly, "but I don't need you to keep proving how small I am. Not anymore." She nodded, sobbing. "I'll make it right, I promise." I didn't hug her, not yet. Forgiveness isn't instant, but I didn't need to destroy her to feel whole. Saving the plane had already done that. Weeks later, Claire transferred back every penny she'd borrowed. From our mother's estate years ago, money she'd used to fund her perfect life. While I struggled, she deleted the old videos. She started therapy. She even came to one of my simulator classes, sat quietly in the back, and listened. We're not best friends. We may never be, but the taunts have stopped. And every time she looks at me now, there's respect instead of ridicule. I still fly in my dreams sometimes, those old missions, the rush, the fear. But the flight that changed everything wasn't in a fighter jet. It was on a crowded airliner. With my broken sister watching, life has a way of turning the tables when you least expect it. The people who hurt you most can end up needing you the most. And sometimes the greatest revenge isn't revenge at all, It's simply showing up. Doing what you were born to do and letting the truth speak louder than any insult ever could. If someone's ever made you feel small, keep flying anyway. One day, the sky might just remind them who you really are. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched you, share it. And tell me in the comments, what's the moment you finally proved them wrong? The knock came at 2:03 am, weak, uneven, like someone was sliding down the door instead of knocking. I jolted awake, heart slamming against my ribs. My apartment was dark except for the blue glow of the clock. I lay there frozen for a second, wondering if I'd imagined it. Then it came again, a soft thump, a muffled sob. I grabbed my phone and crept to the peephole. There she was. My older sister, Maya, curled on the welcome mat in the hallway light, coat half off one shoulder, face pale and slick with sweat. Her legs, those long legs she used to tease me about being useless compared to hers, were twisted at an odd angle. She looked broken. Literally. I opened the door. Maya, what happened? She tried to speak, but only a whimper came out. Her breathing was shallow, ragged. I dropped to my knees beside her. Hey, stay with me. I'm calling. 911. That's when my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Don't save that cripple. Let her lie there. She made her choices. I stared at the screen. The words burned into my eyes. Mom, our mother knew exactly where Maya was. She'd sent this the second I must have opened the door. How? I looked back at Maya. She was shaking, lips moving without sound. Tears mixed with the sweat on her face. She reached for my hand, weak, desperate. All the years of distance crashed over me. Maya had always been the golden one, beautiful, confident, the daughter Mom bragged about at every family gathering. I was the quiet middle child, the one who stayed home to care for Dad during his long illness while Maya chased modeling gigs. In the city, when Dad passed, she barely came to the funeral. Said she had a shoot. Mom forgave her instantly. Me? I was too emotional, too clingy. After that, the rift grew. Maya stopped calling. Mom stopped asking about me. I moved to this small apartment, built a quiet life as a nurse, tried to forget how invisible I'd become, but now Maya was here, collapsed outside my door at 2 a.m., and Mom's text told me to leave her. I didn't hesitate. She's hurt badly. She can't move her legs. Please hurry. While I waited for the ambulance, I covered Maya with a blanket, held her hand. She whispered, barely audible, I'm sorry. I didn't know where else to go. I didn't answer. I just kept her warm. But inside, something cracked open. The betrayal wasn't just Mom's text. It was the lifetime of being second best, of being told my love wasn't enough. And now, they both expected me to turn away when it mattered most. Asterisk, the paramedics arrived fast. They stabilized Maya on a stretcher, loaded her into the ambulance. I rode with her to the hospital, holding her hand the whole way. She kept drifting in and out, murmuring apologies. I couldn't quite hear at the ear. The doctor came out after. What felt like hours, spinal injury. Severe compression fracture from a fall, apparently down a flight of stairs at a club. Possible permanent damage. Surgery was needed immediately. I signed every paper they put in front of me. I was the only family member present. Mom never showed up, not that night. Not the next day. Not even when I texted her the hospital room. Number. Instead, another message came the morning after surgery. She'd drag you down with her. Cut ties now. You owe her nothing. I sat in the waiting room chair, staring at those words until they blurred. My chest felt hollow. All those years Mom had praised Maya's independence, her beauty, her spark. When Maya partied too hard, partied with the wrong people, Mom called it living life. When I stayed home studying nursing, Mom called it boring. And now, when Maya's spark had burned her, Mom wanted me to abandon her. I didn't. She was awake, groggy from pain meds, staring at the ceiling. Why didn't you call Mom? I asked quietly. Maya's eyes filled. I did, she said. She said I wasn't her daughter anymore. Told me not to help you. Maya closed her eyes. A tear slipped down her cheek. I knew she hated me. I thought maybe you still cared. I do, I said, voice breaking. I always did. The next weeks were a blur of hospital routines. I took leave from work. I sat by her bed during physical therapy, held her when the pain made her cry. Maya opened up slowly about the drinking, the bad relationships, the nights she'd wake up not knowing how she got home. She'd been running from something for years. Maybe from Mom's impossible expectations, maybe from herself and me. I was angry. Not just at Mom, at the whole twisted family dynamic that made me feel like the spare tire. Always ready to be used, never celebrated. But anger turned into something else. Resolve. I started documenting everything. Texts, voicemails Mom left. When she thought I wasn't answering, hospital bills Maya couldn't pay. I wasn't sure what I'd do with it yet. I just knew I wouldn't let this slide. One night as Maya slept, I sat in the hallway and cried. Not for her. For the little girl inside me who'd spent decades waiting to be seen. But she learned to stand again with a brace, with a walker, with stubborn tears and quiet determination. I helped her move into a small, accessible apartment near mine. I taught her how to manage her meds, how to cook simple meals, how to ask. Not once. Then the letter came. Mom's lawyer. A formal notice. Maya was being cut out of the family trust. Every cent Dad left for his daughters. The reason? Irresponsible behavior. The trust would go entirely to me, they said, as the responsible child. I read it twice. Then I called the lawyer. I don't want it, I said. Split it evenly. Or better yet, put Maya's half in a trust she controls. And tell Mom I'm done pretending this family is normal. He sounded surprised. Yeah, sure. I've never been more sure. I didn't tell Mom directly. I didn't need to. A week later, she called me screaming, crying, accusing me of betrayal. You're choosing her over me? After everything I did for you, I let her finish. Then I spoke, calm for the first time in years. You told me to leave her to die outside. If that's what family means to you, then I choose her. I hung up, blocked her number. Maya cried when I told her about the trust. Not from guilt. From relief. You didn't have to do that. She whispered. I wanted to, I said. We both deserved better. We're not perfect sisters now. She calls me when she's scared. I call her when I feel invisible again. Mom still sends occasional messages through relatives' guilt trips. Pleas for forgiveness. I don't respond. Some wounds need distance to close. Looking back, the real betrayal wasn't just that night at 2 a.m. It was a lifetime of being pitted against each other. Of love handed out like a prize for perfection, but the greatest justice. Wasn't taking anything away from Mom. It was giving something back to Maya and to myself. We chose each other. And in that choice, we both finally felt seen. If someone in your life ever made you feel like your kindness was weakness, remember this. Kindness isn't weakness. It's power. The kind that can rebuild what cruelty tried to destroy. Sometimes the strongest revenge is refusing to become what hurt you. It's choosing love. Anyway, even at 2, thank you for listening to my story. If it touched something inside you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And tell me in the comments, what's the moment you chose kindness when everyone else chose silence? It was 2:07 a.m. when the sound started soft at first, like fingernails scraping wood, then a dull thump against my front door. I sat up in bed, pulse racing, the apartment silent except for that irregular rhythm. My phone screen glowed. No. Missed calls, no messages. Just the time staring back at me. I slipped out of bed, bare feet on cold floor, and padded to the door. Through the peephole, I saw her, my sister Elena, slumped against the frame, hair matted, coat open, one hand pressed to her side as if holding herself together. Her face was ghostly under the hallway light, eyes half closed, lips moving without sound. I yanked the door open. Elena, oh God, what happened? She tried to stand, legs buckling instantly. I caught her before she hit the ground, her weight heavy and trembling in my arms. Help, please, she whispered, voice cracked and small. I half carried. Half dragged her inside, laid her on the living room rug. She was burning up, shivering at the same time. Bruises bloomed across her cheekbone, fresh and angry. Her breathing came in shallow gasps. I reached for my phone to call. 911. That's when it buzzed in my hand, a text from Mom. Family betrayal at 2 a.m. Don't open the door. Leave that mess outside. She's not your problem anymore. I froze. The words stared up at me, cold and final. Mom knew. She knew Elena was here. She knew she was hurt. And she was telling me, ordering me to turn away. My name is Sarah. I'm 31. A high school guidance counselor by day, the reliable one by night. Elena, 3 years older, was always the wildfire beautiful, reckless, the daughter. Mom pinned every hope and photo on. I was the shadow sister, steady, quiet, the one who stayed behind when Elena left for the city at 19, chasing dreams that never quite landed. When our father died 5 years ago, Elena didn't come home. For the funeral, said flights were too expensive. Mom forgave her in a heartbeat, me. I took unpaid leave to handle everything, the hospital bills, the paperwork, the empty house. Mom called me practical. Elena called me boring. We barely spoke after that. Elena's calls came less often, always asking for money she never paid back. Mom's praise for her never stopped. I learned to swallow the hurt, to tell myself it didn't matter. But now Elena was bleeding on my floor, and Mom's text told me she wasn't worth saving. I looked down at my sister. Tears were cutting tracks through the dirt on her face. I didn't know where else to go, she breathed. I dialed 911. My sister is injured. She's at my apartment. Please send help now. As the operator asked questions, I kept one eye on Elena and one on my phone. Another text from Mom arrived. You'll regret this. I didn't reply. I just held my sister's hand until the sirens came. Asterisk hook, beginning, approx. 465 words. It was 2:07 a.m. when the sound started soft at first, like fingernails scraping wood. Then a dull thump against my front door. I sat up in bed, pulse racing. The apartment silent except for that irregular rhythm. My phone screen glowed. No missed calls, no messages. Just the time staring back at me. I slipped out of bed, bare feet on cold floor, and padded to the door. Through the peephole, I saw her, my sister Elena, slumped against the frame, hair matted, coat open. One hand pressed to her side as if holding herself together. Her face was ghostly under the hallway light, eyes half closed, lips moving without sound. I yanked the door open. Elena? Oh God, what happened? She tried to stand, legs buckling instantly. I caught her before she hit the ground, her weight heavy and trembling in my arms. Help, please, she whispered, voice cracked and small. I half carried, half dragged her inside, laid her on the living room rug. She was burning up, shivering at the same time. Bruises bloomed across her cheekbone, fresh and angry. Her breathing came in shallow gasps. I reached for my phone to call. 911. That's when it buzzed in my hand, a text from Mom. Family betrayal at 2 a.m. Don't open the door. Leave that mess outside. She's not your problem anymore. I froze. The words stared up at me, cold and final. Mom knew. She knew Elena was here. She knew she was hurt. And she was ordering me to turn away. My name is Sarah. I'm 31. A high school guidance counselor by day, the reliable one by night. Elena, 3 years older, was always the wildfire beautiful, reckless, the daughter. Mom pinned every hope and photo on. I was the shadow sister, steady, quiet, the one who stayed behind when Elena left for the city at 19, chasing dreams that never quite landed. When our father died 5 years ago, Elena didn't come home. For the funeral, said flights were too expensive. Mom forgave her in a heartbeat, me. I took unpaid leave to handle everything, the hospital bills, the paperwork, the empty house. Mom called me practical. Elena called me boring. We barely spoke after that. Elena's calls came less often, always asking for money she never paid back. Mom's praise for her never stopped. I learned to swallow the hurt, to tell myself it didn't matter. But now Elena was bleeding on my floor, and Mom's text told me she wasn't worth saving. I looked down at my sister. Tears were cutting tracks through the dirt on her face. I didn't know where else to go. She breathed. I dialed 911. My sister is injured. She's at my apartment. Please send help now. As the operator asked questions, I kept one eye on Elena and one on my phone. Another text from Mom arrived. You'll regret this. I didn't reply. I just held my sister's hand until the sirens came. Mid, conflict and betrayal, approx. 550 words. The ambulance took Elena to the hospital. I followed in my car, still in pajamas, heart hammering the whole way. In the aide they told me she'd been attacked, mugged, beaten, left for dead. After a night out that went wrong. Broken ribs, concussion, internal bruising. She'd walked 3 miles to my place because her phone was smashed and she had nowhere else. I stayed through the night, signing forms, answering questions. Mom never called. Never texted again that night. The next morning, Elena woke up groggy, eyes swollen. When she saw me sitting there, she started crying silent, shaking sobs. I'm sorry, she kept whispering. I'm so sorry for everything. I didn't know what to say. Years of resentment sat heavy in my chest. All the times she borrowed money and ghosted me. All the holidays she skipped while Mom made excuses. All the times Mom compared us and I came up short. Why didn't you call Mom first? I asked. Quietly. Elena looked away. I did, she answered. Said I'd made my bed. Told me not to drag the family down anymore. Then she hung up. The room felt smaller. I pulled out my phone, showed her the texts Mom had sent me. Elena read them, face crumpling. She really said that to you too. I nodded. She wanted me to leave you outside. Elena covered her mouth. All these years, I thought she loved me more. I thought I was the favorite, but she was just using both of us. That truth landed like a stone. Mom hadn't loved either of us unconditionally. She'd loved the version of Elena that made her look good, glamorous, successful. When that version cracked, Mom discarded her and me. I was the backup plan, the one expected to clean up messes without complaint. The betrayal wasn't sudden. It had been building for decades, small comments, unequal affection, silent expectations. But seeing it written in black and white at 2 a.m. made it impossible to ignore anymore. I took a week off work. I visited Elena every day. We really talked for the first time in years. She told me about the bad relationships, the debt, the nights she woke up scared and alone. I told her how invisible I'd felt, how I'd carried the family weight while she flew free. The anger inside me didn't disappear, but it shifted. It stopped being directed at Elena. It turned toward the system that pitted us against each other. One afternoon, while Elena napped, I opened the family group chat Mom had ignored for days. I typed one message. I'm done pretending we're family. Elena is staying with me while she heals. If you want to be part of her life or mine, you'll have to show up. No more games. I hit send. Then I muted the chat for the first time. I felt the ground steady beneath me. Asterisk Elena's recovery took months. She moved into my spare room. We split bills, cooked together, laughed at old memories we'd buried. She started therapy. I started setting boundaries. Mom tried calling. Once 3 weeks later, voice trembling with fake concern. Sarah, honey, I was just worried. You know how dramatic Elena can be. I listened quietly. Then I said, no, Mom, I know how conditional your love is. We both do now. If you want back in, it's on our terms. Otherwise, stay gone. She cried. She begged. She accused me of turning Elena against her. I didn't argue. I just ended the call. She hasn't tried again. The money Elena owed me, she's paying it back slowly, every month, no excuses. More importantly, she's present. She shows up for birthdays, for bad days, for nothing at all. We're not the sisters from childhood movies. We still have scars, but we're honest now. We choose each other every day. Mom still lives in the big house Dad left, surrounded by photos of the perfect family that never existed. Relatives whisper that she's lonely. Some say I was too hard on her. I don't explain anymore. The real justice wasn't cutting her off. It was refusing to let her version of love define us. It was building something real between Elena and me, something she could never control. That 2 a.m. text was meant to break us apart. Instead, it forced us together. If there's a lesson here, it's this. Family isn't the people who share your blood. It's the people who show up when you're bleeding on the floor and the people who refuse to leave you there. Sometimes the deepest betrayal comes from the ones who claim to love you most. Asterisk. I woke up gasping at 3:42 a.m., sheets twisted around my legs, heart pounding like it wanted out of my chest. The dream was still so vivid I could smell Dad's aftershave, sandalwood, and pine. The same one he wore every Sunday morning. He stood at the foot of my bed in his old gray sweater, the one with the frayed cuffs, looking exactly like he did before the heart attack took him 2 years ago. No halo, no heavenly light. Just Dad, serious, quiet, eyes locked on mine. He didn't say hello. He didn't smile. He just spoke, voice low and urgent. Don't wear that dress your sister gave you. 5 words. Then he was gone. The room snapped back to darkness. I sat there shaking, trying to convince myself it was grief playing tricks. Dad had been gone long enough that dreams like that shouldn't surprise me anymore. But this one felt different, heavy, like a warning. The dress was hanging in my closet, still wrapped in the clear plastic bag my younger sister Olivia had handed me 3 weeks earlier. She'd driven 2 hours to surprise me for my birthday. We sat on the couch with coffee, laughing about old times, and she pulled it out like it was treasure. Emerald silk, she said, eyes sparkling. Fitted just right. You're going to turn heads up at gala, big sis. You deserve to feel beautiful again. Beautiful again. She meant after the divorce, after the months I spent crying in the shower, after I'd finally started dating someone. New. Olivia had been my lifeline through all of it, daily texts. Surprise deliveries of soup when I was sick, long phone calls when the loneliness hit hardest. She was only 28, 4 years younger, but she always seemed to have it together. Perfect job in marketing, perfect boyfriend, perfect life. I leaned on her more than I cared to admit. I thanked her, hugged her tight, promised I'd wear it. But now Dad's voice echoed in my skull. Don't wear it. I got up, flicked on the closet light, and stared at the bag. My fingers hovered over the zipper. I told myself I was being ridiculous. Dreams aren't messages. Sisters don't betray sisters. Still, I couldn't shake the chill. Gala was in 5 days. I had nothing else formal enough. So I told myself I'd try it on tomorrow, just try it. Nothing more. I went back to bed, but sleep never came. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Dad's face, and every time I looked at the closet, I felt watched. Asterisk. The next afternoon, I stood in front of the full-length mirror, the emerald dress sliding over my skin like cool water. It fit perfectly, too perfectly. The neckline dipped just right. The fabric caught the light like it was made to be seen. I turned, admiring the way it moved, almost smiling for the first time in months. Then I noticed it. A tiny, almost invisible seam along the inner lining at the lower back, near the zipper. It looked wrong, like someone had opened it and stitched. It shut again with slightly mismatched thread dot. My stomach dropped. I grabbed nail scissors from the bathroom, hands trembling. I cut carefully along the seam. Inside, pressed flat between the lining and the silk, was a small black device, no bigger than a matchbox. A tiny lens, a battery, thin wires, a hidden camera. Pointing directly at me, I sank to the floor, the dress pooling around me like spilled ink. My breath came in short, painful bursts. Olivia, my sister. She'd given me a dress wired to spy. On me dealt the questions crashed in waves. How long? Why? What had she already seen? I thought back. The little gifts she'd brought over the past year, a scented candle for my bedroom, a new throw blanket for the couch, even a framed photo of us as kids on vacation. Had those been rigged too? Had she been watching me grieve my marriage, cry alone at night, rebuild my life piece by piece? I remembered her questions. Seeing anyone new? How's the house feel now that it's just you? Always so caring. Always so interested, I called her. Voice steady even though I was breaking. Liv, I found something in the dress. A camera. Silence. Then a small nervous laugh. What? Oh, it's just a tag sensor thing. For security. I forgot to tell you. Silly me. A tag sensor dot. I hung up dot. Then I started looking. Old texts. Bank statements she'd helped me organize after the divorce when I was too numb to notice. Transfers. Small at first. Then larger. Thousands. From my savings to hers. She'd had access to my accounts when I was at my lowest. I trusted her completely. The pain wasn't just betrayal. It was violation. She hadn't just taken money. She'd taken my privacy, my vulnerability, my trust. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I sat on the floor in that crisp dress and felt something shift inside me dot. The hurt was still there. Raw and deep dot, but beneath. It's something harder was forming. Resolve. I wasn't going to let her destroy me. I was going to make sure she never did this to anyone again. Asterisk, the gala was Saturday night. I didn't wear the dress. I wore black, simple, elegant, powerful. I carried the box camera in my purse like evidence. Olivia was there, of course. She'd bought a ticket as my +1, smiling, hugging people, playing the perfect supportive sister. It didn't feel right. Later, when the crowd thinned, I pulled her into a quiet corner near the balcony. I handed her the box. Open it. She did. Her face drained of color when she saw the device, wires exposed, lens staring back. I know everything, I said softly. The camera, the money, the lies. She stammered. It wasn't like that. I was looking out for you. You were so lost after the divorce, looking out for me. My voice cracked, but I held steady. You watched me when I was most broken. You stole from me. That's not love. That's control. Tears filled her eyes. Please, don't tell anyone. It'll ruin my career, my life. I looked at her, really looked. The sister I'd protected, leaned on, loved. The one Dad had tried to warn me about, even from the other side. I won't destroy you publicly, I said, but you will return every cent with interest, and you will stay out of my life. Completely. Or this footage, yes, I downloaded it all, goes to the police. And to everyone we know. She broke then, sobbing, begging, but I walked away, clean, done. 6 months later, the money was back in my account, quietly transferred. She moved to another city. We haven't spoken since. I still miss the sister I thought I had, but I don't. Miss the poison she carried. Dad's dream saved me. Maybe he saw her jealousy growing long before he left us. Maybe love doesn't stop when the heart does. Maybe it finds a way to protect. I sleep better now. The closet feels lighter. Then every time I pass a mirror in something emerald, I remember the people closest to us can hide the sharpest secrets, but truth has a way of cutting through even. In dreams, if someone you trusted ever made you feel small, exposed, or stolen from, listen to that quiet voice inside. It might just be the person who loved you most, still watching over you. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't destruction. It's choosing to stand tall in your own light and letting the darkness fall away. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched you, share it. And tell me in the comments, what's the moment you finally saw the truth and chose yourself? We're not alone in this, and healing. It starts the second we stop wearing what was never meant for us. I still remember the rain that day. It fell in heavy sheets over the graveyard, like the sky itself was mourning Ahmed with me. My husband, my everything, was lowered into the earth, and I stood there in black, numb, clutching the rose I'd placed on his chest just moments before. We'd been married 8 years. No children yet, but we dreamed of them. A quiet home in Karachi, filled with his laughter, my cooking, our late night talks about the future. He was gone too soon, a sudden heart attack at 38. I thought that was the worst pain life could throw at me. I was wrong. After the funeral, family gathered at our house. Relatives whispered condolences, but I noticed the way Ahmed's father, my father-in-law, Uncle Farouk, kept staring at the walls, the furniture, the keys on the table like they already belonged to him. He waited until most people left. Then he sat across from me, his voice low but firm. "This house," he said, "it goes back to the blood family now. You understand, Beta? Ahmed was my son. The property reverts to us, his brothers, his sisters, the real lineage. You've had your time here. We'll help you find a small place." As if I hadn't been his wife, his partner, the one who held his hand through every storm. As if 8 years of love meant nothing, I felt the room spin. Tears burned my eyes, but I didn't let them fall, not yet. I nodded slowly, said nothing. Inside, something cracked open. Not just grief, anger, a quiet, burning realization that they saw me as temporary. A guest who'd overstayed that night, alone in our bed that still smelled like him. I cried until there were no tears left. How could they do this? How could they erase me so easily? But what they didn't know, what no one knew, was that years ago, quietly, he'd made sure I was protected. But what I didn't know then was how deep their betrayal ran. Asterisk the next morning. They came back. Uncle Farouk with Ahmed's brother and sister. They walked through the house like inspectors, pointing out family heirlooms, discussing repairs they'd make once it was theirs. I stood in the kitchen, hands shaking as I made tea. No one drank. "You're young," Uncle Farouk said gently, as if that made it better. "You'll remarry. This isn't your burden anymore. Remarry." As if Ahmed was replaceable. Ahmed and I bought this house together. My savings went into it. Too, we have papers. He waved a hand. Papers don't matter. Blood matters. In our family, property stays with blood. You're not blood. The words hit like a slap. I felt small, invisible. They pressured knee calls. Visits, even hints that if I didn't leave quietly, things could get difficult. Neighbors whispered. Relatives took sides. Some said I was being selfish, clinging to what wasn't mine. Others pitied me but stayed silent. My heart shattered every time I walked past our wedding photo on the wall. Ahmed smiling, me in red. So full of hope, I barely slept. Grief mixed with rage until I couldn't tell them apart. I stopped eating properly. Friends begged me to fight, but how? They were family, his family. And I was alone. Then came the day they changed the locks. I came home from the market to find my key wouldn't turn. Uncle Farouk stood at the door, calm as ever. "We thought it best," he said. "You can collect your things tomorrow. We'll arrange a ride." I stood there in the street, bags in hand, rain starting again, broken, betrayed. But in that moment, something shifted. Into resolve, I remembered Ahmed's last words to me months before when he wasn't feeling well. "Everything's in place. Don't let them take what we built." I hadn't understood then. Now I did. I didn't cry anymore. I called Mr. Khan that night. Mr. Khan met me the next day in his small office. He pulled out files, Ahmed's will, documents I'd never seen. Ahmed had transferred the house deed to joint ownership years ago, my name right beside his. More than that, he created a trust for our future family, naming me the sole beneficiary if he passed first. No children yet, but the intent was clear. The property was legally mine. Ahmed had anticipated his family's greed and protected me quietly. Without drama. When I showed up at the house with the lawyer and police escort for my belongings, Uncle Farouk's face went pale. I didn't shout. I didn't need to. "This house," I said softly, "is mine." Ahmed made sure of it. "The papers prove it." They argued, threatened court. But Mr. Khan was calm, precise. The will was ironclad. Under law, as his widow, I had every right. Their blood family claim crumbled like dry earth. Word spread fast. Relatives who'd sided against me went quiet. Uncle Farouk tried one. Last plea tears, apologies, saying it was just tradition. But tradition doesn't override love. Or law. I didn't throw them out dramatically. I let them leave with dignity because Ahmed would have wanted that. But I changed the locks myself. I kept the house we built. Every corner reminded me of him, but now it reminded me of my strength too. Months later, I planted a garden in the backyard, roses, like the one I left on his grave. I sit there sometimes, feeling peace. Not revenge's bitter taste, but justice's quiet victory. They thought they could erase me. They never expected I'd been protected all along. Ahmed's love didn't die with him. It shielded me. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Love prepares you even when you don't know it. And when betrayal comes, sometimes the greatest revenge isn't destruction. It's simply refusing to disappear. Standing tall in the life you build together. Finding peace after the storm. Because in the end, blood isn't always family. Loyalty is. And loyalty wins. I never thought the man who was supposed to protect me would be the one who almost ended my life. My name is Emily. And for most of my teenage years, I lived on a quiet army base with my mom and my stepfather, Mark. He was a retired soldier. Tall, disciplined, the kind of man everyone on base respected. When he first married my mom, I actually felt safe. After years of moving from place to place with just the two of us, it felt like we finally had a real family. But behind closed doors, the mask slowly slipped out at first. It was small things. The way he'd criticize everything I did. The way he controlled the house like it was still his barracks. Mom always made excuses for him. He's just stressed from his old deployments. I believed her. I wanted to believe her. I told myself that if I was quieter, better, more obedient, the tension would go away. Until that night. It was a little after midnight. Rain was hammering against the windows of our base housing. I had come home late from studying at a friend's house, only 15 minutes past curfew. The second I stepped through the door, I felt the air change. Mark was sitting in the living room. Lights off, just the glow of the TV on his face. His eyes were cold. "Where have you been?" His voice was low, but I could hear the rage simmering underneath. I tried to explain, but he didn't want explanations. He stood up, and before I could even back away, his hand cracked across my face so hard my vision blurred. "You think you can disrespect this house? After everything I've done for you?" That was only the beginning. He grabbed me by the arm and slammed me against the wall. I begged him to stop. I screamed for my mom, but she just stood in the hallway, frozen tears running down her face, whispering, "Mark, please, she's just a kid." He didn't listen. His fists came down again and again on my arms, my back, my ribs. Every blow felt like it shattered something deeper than bone. I could taste blood in my mouth. My body crumpled to the floor, but he kept going, yelling that I was ungrateful, that I was ruining his perfect family. In that moment, I truly believed I was going to die. Asterisk, the pain was unbearable, but what hurt even more was the betrayal. This was the man who had promised to be a father to me. The same man who once taught me how to ride a bike on base and told me stories about his time in the military. Now he was using that same strength to break me. I curled into a ball on the cold tile floor, trying to protect my head as another kick landed. My phone had fallen out of my pocket during the struggle. It lay just a few feet away, screen cracked but still lit up. Through swollen eyes, I saw my mom turn away. She didn't call for help. She didn't step in. She just whispered, "You." Made him angry, "Emily, just stay quiet." That was the moment my heart truly broke. I had always defended her. I had convinced myself she was scared too. But in that instant, I realized she had chosen him over me, again and again. The woman who was supposed to protect her daughter was standing there, doing nothing while I was being beaten. Tears mixed with blood on my face. My body screamed in agony, but my mind was racing. I knew if I didn't do something right then, this might be the last night of my life. With shaking fingers, I reached for my phone. My vision was blurry. My ribs felt like they were on fire, but I managed to unlock it. I didn't call 911. I didn't have time for that. Instead, I opened my messages and typed 3 letters with everything I had left. Then I added the address of our quarters and hit send. To the one person I knew would come. My older brother, Ryan. He wasn't just my brother. He was active duty, Army Special Forces. The kind of soldier they send in when everything else fails. He had always told me, if you're ever in real trouble, you send that word. I'll come running, no questions. I prayed he would see. And in time, Mark noticed what I was doing. He ripped the phone from my hand and threw it across the room. "Who are you texting? You think someone's going to save you?" He laughed, but there was something uneasy in his voice now. I closed my eyes and whispered through split lips, "It's already done." The next few minutes felt like hours. He kept shouting, pacing, threatening what would happen if I ever told anyone. My mom cried silently in the corner. I lay there on the floor, every breath hurting, wondering if this was how it ended. Broken, betrayed, and alone. But I wasn't alone, because somewhere out in the night, my message had been received. Asterisk less. Then 8 minutes later, I heard the sound that changed everything. Boots, heavy, fast, purposeful boots coming up the walkway. Then the front door exploded open, literally kicked in with one powerful strike. 4 men in tactical gear burst into the house, weapons drawn, moving like shadows. At the front was my brother Ryan, his face carved from stone, eyes blazing with a fury I had never seen before. "Get away from her, now." Mark froze. For the first time that night, the bully became the one who looked small. "What the hell is this?" he barked, trying to sound in control. Ryan didn't answer with words. He crossed the room in 2 strides, grabbed Mark by the collar, and slammed him against the wall so hard the pictures rattled. "You put your hands on my sister?" His voice was ice cold. Big mistake. The other Special Forces operators moved like a well-oiled machine. One of them gently helped me up while another secured the scene. They called for medical immediately. I could barely stand, but I felt safe for the first time in years. Mark tried to protest. He claimed I was lying, that I was rebellious, that this was all a misunderstanding, that the bruises covering my body told a different story. My mom finally broke down and admitted what had been happening. Too late. The military police arrived right behind them. Mark was handcuffed in his own living room, right in front of the neighbors who had come out to see what the commotion was about. The respected soldier was exposed as the monster he truly was. That night, he was taken into custody. Charges were filed: assault, domestic violence, child endangerment. Because of Ryan's connections and the clear evidence, the case moved fast. Mark lost everything: his reputation on base, his benefits, and eventually his freedom. My mom. She had to face what she had allowed. We're still working through that pain, but I'm learning to set boundaries. Some betrayals cut the deepest when they come from the people who were supposed to love you most. As for me, I spent weeks healing, physically and emotionally. The bruises faded, but the strength I found that night never left. I learned something powerful in the darkest moment of my life. You don't have to be strong enough to fight back alone. Sometimes, all it takes is one quiet message, 3 little letters, to bring the light rushing in. Never be afraid to reach out when you're breaking. There are people who will move mountains or kick down doors to protect you. And to anyone listening who feels trapped, scared, or alone in their own home, please know this: you are not powerless. You are not ungrateful for wanting safety, and you are never truly alone. Send the message. Reach for help. Your rescue is closer than you think. I'm Emily, and I survived. More than that, I'm healing, I'm growing, and I'm finally free. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, your voice, even when it's only 3 letters long, can change everything. Asterisk.